His phenomenal career has spanned nearly every important breakthrough in space-age. A fellow scientist calls him the greatest human element behind America's rocketry success. Yet he remains a controversial figure. This man perfected a wonder weapon that could have won the war for Adolf Hitler. His name is Dr. Wernher von Braun, and this is his biography. In 1955, Wernher von Braun, along with a group of German-born rocket scientists and their families, appeared in an Alabama school auditorium to accept the responsibilities and the privileges of United States citizenship. In the course of his extraordinary career, von Braun had received many honors. Yet for many reasons, he called this one of the proudest and most significant days of my life. In 1912, Wernher von Braun is born to aristocratic Swedish-Prussian parents on an estate in eastern Germany. When young Wernher shows unusual enthusiasm for astronomy, his mother gives him a gift most 10-year-old boys can only dream about, a telescope. Attending Germany's finest private schools, young von Braun learns about the infant science of rocketry. German rocket experiments of the exciting post-World War I era intrigue him, even though many call them ridiculous Jules Verne adventures. In the late 1920s, however, the most significant work in rocketry is being done by an American scientist named Robert Goddard. Goddard makes an incredible breakthrough when he successfully launches the world's first liquid-fueled missile. Goddard's work is ignored in the United States, but young von Braun, by now a budding rocket scientist, calls him my boyhood hero. At the age of 20, von Braun is recognized as the young genius of German rocketry. German army officials single him out for a daring new project. Von Braun supervises a corps of civilian specialists assigned to develop a liquid-fueled rocket based on Robert Goddard's patent. These men dream of the day when space exploration will become a reality. Von Braun says, at that time, none of us thought of rockets as weapons of war. It is 1933. With the rise of Adolf Hitler and Nazi militarism, rockets become important as potential weapons. Hitler will support von Braun's costly research only if he will develop rockets for wartime use. Von Braun accepts this condition in order that he may continue his work. Hitler immediately assigns high priority to the Army's rocket program. Existing research and production facilities become inadequate almost overnight. When a new rocket assembly and test site is called for, Von Braun selects this marshy strip of land near the German fishing village of Peenemunde on the Baltic Sea coast. It is an area that had been his grandfather's favorite retreat for shooting ducks. April 1937. Work on the German rocket city is completed. Then, after 5 years of design, assembly, and static tests, Von Braun and his engineering staff anxiously prepare for the first test firing of their A-4, a giant new rocket built to climb to the edge of outer space. Last-minute checks are made. An exotic mixture of liquid oxygen and alcohol fuels the A-4. For Von Braun and his fellow scientists, this is the culmination of years of intensive work. In the months that follow, spectacular failures become a familiar sight at Peenemunde. Finally, October 3rd, 1942. Threatened with cancellation of the Peenemunde project if costly failures continue, this is Von Braun's last chance to make good. The A-4 streaks to an incredible altitude of 60 miles, a height never before approached by man-made rockets. Says one German scientist, today the spaceship is born. Now, Adolf Hitler issues a fantastic order for 30,000 armed rockets to be readied for the annihilation of London. Hitler vows, we will stop British air raids on the fatherland, so help us God. In England, British intelligence has learned of Germany's secret rocket project. A desperate air search for a likely missile plant is now launched. In daring low-level missions, Allied reconnaissance planes penetrate deep within enemy territory. Finally, on the eve of Hitler's planned rocket attack against London, an RAF photographer snaps pictures of a suspicious area along the Baltic coast. At intelligence headquarters, the photos reveal a large concentration of rockets and warehouses. On August 17, 1943, 600 British heavy bombers head east across the English Channel. Their target, Peenemunde. Miraculously, Von Braun and all but one of the key scientists survived the devastating raid. But important rocket construction plans are lost. Assembly shops lie in ruins. Months will pass before rocket production at Peenemunde can be resumed. The British raid on Peenemunde cripples Hitler's plans of vengeance. Now the Nazi dictator has a strange premonition. A dream that the rocket wonder weapon will never reach London. In a move that stuns Peenemunde's scientists, Adolf Hitler cancels all future rocket production. Von Braun finds himself suddenly faced with the end of years of research. To restore Hitler's faith in rockets, he hastily puts together a movie showing only successful launches, and he rushes it to the Fuhrer's headquarters. Upon viewing this film, personally narrated by Wernher von Braun, Hitler is again convinced of the rocket's potential. He immediately orders resumption of full-scale production at Peenemunde. September 6, 1944. Armed with over a ton of high explosives, Germany's first tactical rocket, now called the V-2, the vengeance weapon, is fired at London. In its supersonic fall from the edge of space, the V-2 cannot be seen or heard until the terrible moment of impact. In the months that follow, 1,500 V-2s are hurled at London. More than 500 find their mark. Despite its destructive force, entrance of the V-2 into the war comes too late to change the fate of Germany. Allied armies advancing through Europe quickly overrun the rocket launching sites in the west. In the east, Russian motorized divisions spearhead a drive on Berlin. At Peenemunde, von Braun offers his fellow scientists a choice. Either remain where they are and fall into communist hands, or surrender to the Americans at the risk of being tried later as war criminals. In trucks fueled with rocket alcohol, von Braun and the cream of Peenemunde's scientific staff flee through war-torn Germany toward American lines. For Wernher von Braun, the fate of his lifelong career in rocketry will soon rest with the victorious Allies. May 1945. With Hitler's death officially announced, von Braun surrenders to U.S. forces. Except for a broken arm suffered during his escape from the north, von Braun seems hale and hearty. Now, to his astonishment, von Braun learns that he and his fellow rocket scientists from Penemunde are actually welcomed by the Americans.
I myself and everybody you see here have decided to go west, and I think our decision was not one of expediency, but a moral decision. We knew that we had created a new means of warfare, and the question as to what nation, to what victorious nation we were willing to entrust this brainchild of ours was a moral decision more than anything else. We wanted to see the world spare another conflict such as Germany had just been through, and we felt that only by surrendering such a weapon to people who are guided by the Bible would such an assurance to the world be best secured.
An American intelligence team selects von Braun and over 100 top Penemunde scientists for transfer to the United States. There they will form the core of the Army's new guided missile program. Wernher von Braun and the German scientists assigned to El Paso's Fort Bliss face a difficult period of adjustment. The handful of German rocket men are not allowed to leave the grounds at Fort Bliss. They soon call themselves prisoners of peace. For von Braun, the opportunity to embark on new rocket projects takes the sting out of the open hostilities some Americans show. At White Sands Proving Ground in the New Mexico desert, he's put in charge of further development of captured V-2 rockets. He hopes now for the chance to probe the mysteries of the upper Wernher von Braun again experiences the frustrating ordeal of trial and error, which had become familiar years ago at Peenemunde. America's captured V-2 rockets, however, are gradually improved. They soon show promise of providing some of the answers to the riddles of outer space. February 24th, 1949. Von Braun's mighty V-2 is set to hurl a second-stage Whack Corporal missile 250 miles above the Earth's surface, higher than any rocket has ever gone before. Flight into space, says von Braun, will raise our civilization to levels never before attained in human history. It will free man from his remaining chains, the chains of gravity which still tie him to this planet. It will open to him the gates of heaven. In the late 1940s, von Braun predicts that Russia's advanced rocketry could lead to a Soviet victory in a race for missile supremacy with the free world. Few officials take the warning seriously. The work at White Sands is given little attention. 1950, the Korean War erupts. The team of German rocket scientists is rushed to Huntsville, Alabama. Now a crash program for missile development is ordered. Here at the Army's Redstone Arsenal, von Braun is assigned to supervise development of the V-2's big brother, a 20-ton ballistic missile called Redstone. The Redstone is successfully tested in 1953, giving the United States a commanding lead in the missile buildup. With the end of the Korean War, interest in rocket development lags again. In books and magazines, at lectures, Wernher von Braun becomes an insistent voice trying to make Americans space conscious. Von Braun pushes for a joint Army-Navy program designed to put the world's first man-made satellite into orbit around the Earth by late 1955. Many deride his effort as the unsound scheme of a space cadet. His critics call him more salesman than scientist. Says von Braun, I have to be a two-headed monster, scientist and public relations man. Then, July 1955, President Eisenhower announces America's decision to launch a satellite during the International Geophysical Year, 1957. But the president is advised to separate military and civilian space activities, to use a non-military rocket. Von Braun's satellite project, which would have used the Army's Redstone, is scuttled. Eisenhower announces work will begin on a new rocket called the Vanguard. Then, October 4th, 1957, Russia shocks the free world. The USSR hurls into orbit the world's first Earth satellite, Sputnik 1. The Soviets are now the unquestionable leaders in the race for space. 5 days after the launch of a second Sputnik, the Army Ballistic Missile Agency's commander, Major General General Medaris, calls von Braun and his staff to a decisive meeting.
I have a very important announcement for you. We've been assigned the mission of launching a scientific Earth satellite. I promised the Secretary of the Army that we would be ready in 90 days or less. Let's go, Wernher.
Von Braun and his team begin their crash program to put a satellite into orbit before a third Russian success. But Vanguard will still have the first chance to orbit an American satellite. In early December 1957, the Vanguard rocket and satellite stand ready at Cape Canaveral. With the failure of the Vanguard, America's prestige now hangs on the fate of von Braun's modified Redstone rocket called the Jupiter C. January 31st, 1958. 6 days before von Braun's deadline, the Explorer 1 satellite sits ready, high atop the giant Jupiter C rocket. Wernher von Braun's most profound hopes may soon be realized. At Cape Canaveral, last-minute preparations are made before the countdown begins.
Okay, we'll start now.
Any fuel loading?
Frequency 111, Terry.
Okay. Check the utility room fuel vapors. Notify the blockhouse.
Fuel tank pressure. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire command. Lift off. Lift off.
In Washington, where von Braun has waited out the launch with fellow Explorer scientists James Van Allen and William Pickering, news is flashed of the long-awaited event. America has her satellite in orbit. Wernher von Braun returns to Huntsville, the nation's #1 space-age hero. The atmosphere of mistrust and hostility that surrounded Wernher von Braun when he first came to America has all but disappeared. Von Braun now vacations with his parents at their home in Germany. Baron Magnus von Braun, a retired government official, and the Baroness, herself a lifelong amateur astronomer, happily recall memories with a son who dreamed of exploring the universe. In 1960, von Braun is appointed director of the George